Good afternoon to you. 306 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news today. Coming up, Sean Spicer will join us this hour, 3:30. He's been involved in Republican debates in the past. We'll talk to him about what to expect tonight in that first GOP debate set to take place 9 o'clock in Milwaukee. You'll be able to hear the whole thing live right here on WMAL. Phil Kerpen is here at 4 o'clock today. We'll talk to him about the reemergence of the so-called COVID protocols. They're beginning to creep back in. Phil Kerpen with an expansive view of how that's happening. Daniel Turner is here as well from Power of the Future. That's at 4:30. We'll talk about questions for these Republican candidates tonight. And Dr. Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation joins me at 5 o'clock about why we don't need to be spending another $24 billion American dollars on Ukraine. A lot of controversy around that thought, around that position. Kevin Roberts will join me at 5 o'clock to discuss. And you can join me, as always, at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. As I mentioned, tonight's Republican debate from Milwaukee, as carried by the Fox News Channel, you'll be able to hear it live here on WMAL. If you'd like to listen to your favorite radio station, that's a good way to do it. And you can hear the debate air at 9 o'clock. They say it'll air until about 11 p.m. this evening, so 2 hours of debate among these candidates. At center stage, as I mentioned to you yesterday, Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy, the tech entrepreneur, now political candidate. Of course, Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor. DeSantis is coming in as really the guy who certainly believes that he will be the target on stage tonight. And is definitely the number 2 candidate up until this point, now tied with Vivek Ramaswamy, but the number 2 candidate. A distant second in this race at this moment, as Trump maintains nearly a 50-point lead over both Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy. If anything in this campaign, this primary process is going to change, it will likely change after this evening, because it'll be about what do these men present themselves as tonight, and Nikki Haley, in her case, a woman, but what do these candidates present themselves as tonight? What kind of alternative did they offer to Donald Trump, the gigantic frontrunner in this race? Do they go after him directly? I saw Rand Paul, the former 2016 presidential candidate. He was and notoriously grumpy while he was running for office, which is really funny. I love Rand Paul's candidacy. It was amusing. He says he's been saying that his people told him not to attack Trump in 2016. When you're on that debate stage, don't attack Trump. It's not going to work out for you. And Rand Paul said, you know what I did? I got up on that stage and I attacked Trump. Here he is telling Jesse Waters this last night.
You know, it's funny. The same sort of strategy is coming up now. Do you attack Trump or you don't attack Trump? So when I was in the debate, there were 16 on the stage, and I was in the far periphery, and my staff said, whatever you do, don't attack Trump. And so the very first question, what did I do? I attacked Trump. And mainly because if you're sitting on the periphery of the stage, you don't get as many questions, you don't get as much time, and your only chance really is to jump in and go after the front runner. So I go against all the logic that people say, don't attack the front runner because he's popular. Sure, he's popular, but there will be things you have to argue that you can do better than Trump, and if you can't make that argument, you don't have a chance. So my advice is go after the front runner. It'll be more interesting anyway.
Yeah, it'll be more interesting, but what happened to Rand Paul's candidacy? What kind of advice is this? Did you enjoy the 8 years of President Rand Paul? That didn't happen. In fact, if you're curious what it sounded like back when Trump and Rand Paul were debating.
I think his response, his visceral response to attack people on their appearance, short, tall, fat, ugly. My goodness, that happened in junior high. Are we not way above that? Would we not all be worried to have someone like that in charge of the nuclear arsenal?
Mr. Trump.
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there. That I can tell you.
It's unbelievable. 2016. And this is one of the reasons I'm missing Donald Trump tonight on this debate stage, quite honestly. And I know if you are being honest with yourself, it's a reason you're missing him as well, that he won't be appearing alongside these candidates tonight. You won't see the debate sensation we've seen in the past. Meanwhile, one last thought on Rand Paul, and I know it's not about Rand Paul, but I just can't help myself. His 2016 campaign, I think my favorite moment of the campaign for him, his short-lived campaign, was when he was doing a live stream answering viewer questions. People were submitting questions for the candidate to answer. Rand Paul clearly didn't want to be doing it, and this is an example of that.
Most popular question from Google is Rand Paul still running for president? And I don't know, I wouldn't be doing this dumbass live streaming if I weren't. So yes, I still am running for president. Get over it. Where is Rand Paul in the polls? This is not live. We can't edit this, right?
Oh, the good old years, huh? So tonight, Donald Trump not on that stage. Donald Trump will be visible, though, this evening because he has already pre-taped an interview with one-time Fox News host Tucker Carlson. And boy, doesn't that make things interesting for all sorts of reasons. Just minutes before the start of our program this afternoon, Tucker Carlson X'd a video of himself, kind of giving a preview of what to expect tonight. Here's the audio of that. Let me share it.
On Sunday, Donald Trump announced that he will not participate in tonight's Republican candidates debate, hosted by Fox News in Milwaukee. Whatever you think of Trump, he is, as of tonight, the indisputable far and away frontrunner in the Republican race. We think voters have an interest in hearing what he thinks. So when Trump approached us about having a conversation for a far larger audience than he'd receive on cable news, we happily accepted. That interview will air tonight in this space at 8:55. We hope you'll watch.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So 8:55. Now, it's not a 5-minute interview. It's going to be long form. And if people are deciding they want to jump right on that thing right at the same moment, then that is eyeballs not going to the Fox News channel from the former host, leading host of the Fox News channel. Very interesting timing on all of this. Now, I'll be consuming all of this, the debate at 9 o'clock, and then subsequently I'm going to check in on Tucker's conversation with Trump to get a full picture of what these candidates are going to be saying this evening. Now, obviously, because this is taped, this is not going to be Trump responding to the candidates, unless it's just sort of the generic themes from the campaign, the types of things that some of the other candidates may have said, including Chris Christie, who's been doggedly attacking Donald Trump now for the duration of his campaign. The criticisms that Ron DeSantis would level against him related to, whatever, just the winning elections versus losing elections or hiring and firing, all of the things that DeSantis has said that he could do better than Trump and that he's got the record for. Perhaps Trump responds to some of that tonight. I have no insight into the specifics of this conversation, but I expect, just based on the way all of these Tucker interviews have gone, that it'll be long form and that we'll hear quite a bit from Trump. We'll also probably hear Tucker raise a number of questions you wouldn't hear anywhere else, including on the Fox News channel or in any of these left-wing outlets, obviously. So it could be very interesting. I'm looking forward to all of it. But what are you looking forward to here? Do you think that debates are healthy in our republic? 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I think the answer to that is quite obviously yes. Debates are healthy. It'll be interesting to see if, I think one of the takeaways tonight is going to be based on how much success any of these candidates actually have on stage. Because if let's just say Ron DeSantis performs so well tonight that he ends up accruing support and diminishing the support of the rest of the people on that stage, that could be a big deal for him if he gets a little bit of tailwind coming out of the debate tonight. Now, he's going to have to contest with a lot of conflicting headlines, right? First of all, you've got Trump kind of bigfooting the debate stage, doing this thing on the side with Tucker. Simultaneously, tomorrow, Trump is set to be booked in jail. The news cycle is going to change very dramatically tomorrow, and that's across all outlets, regardless of partisan inclination. And for obvious reasons. So you've got the Biden administration and his allies locking up his political opponent. Yet that does seem like a huge deal and should be covered as such. But if one of these guys, if DeSantis can get some tailwind here, the only thing I could possibly believe might change things going forward in the campaign is if he does well enough, then maybe Trump decides, okay, I need to get back into these debates. We've got a lot of people on stage who are going to try to take some free shots at Trump tonight. And that means, when I say free, Trump's not there to respond. You also have to wonder how Fox News is going to package all of this. You've got the moderators tonight. You've got Fox News' production team. They're obviously going to have to ask questions about the front runner of the race of these candidates. Why would you be better than him? Perhaps they'll play tape of him in lieu of his presence. I've heard some reports of that, potentially. Maybe he is represented in that tape since he's not going to be on stage. It'll be interesting, no question. It always is in American politics. Let me take Sean in Stafford first up on line one. Sean, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, good to talk to you. About the debate tonight, I'm really disappointed with Trump. And personally, I believe that if you don't participate in these debates, I really don't think you have any business running. And I know that he's the front runner, and I know it's not going to do anything amongst his most fervent supporters, but it may not affect anything at all. But I just think it shows poor class, and it's not something that he should do. I think we deserve more than that.
Well, one of the now he's making a political calculation, as you've pointed out, that is based on his standing in the polls, and he's said as much. That in fact, I think there's a PAC that supports Trump today that is joking that this is the vice presidential debate. That all of these people who are standing on stage are fighting to join the ticket with Donald Trump. But to your point, the underlying point, I agree on this front, which is the obligation of candidates in America is to earn my vote, to earn your vote, Sean. So they need to get in front of us and do that. Now, Trump, if he was seated here and I was to ask him about that, I think he'd argue, look, I was president. If you're looking for what my record is and what it's going to be, I had time in office. Things were a lot better than before Biden. And if you'd like that, I'm going to do that again. I don't need to be on stage in order to make that point. And I can see both arguments here, but I definitely have that, what you have, Sean, that American sense of, no, you need to prove it to me. I am, as an American citizen, you want to earn my vote, then earn it.
Yep, no, absolutely. And I really think it's a good chance for him to get out there and tangle with DeSantis as well. It's not just we know what he's done. It's how he's going to differentiate himself from the other individuals on the stage. And, that's why it's so important for him to be up there.
Yeah. All right, Sean, thank you very much. Really appreciate the call. Let me take Bill in Fredericksburg, line 5. Bill, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Vince, good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Listen, I'm a Trump supporter, and I have no problem with him not going to the debates. I don't think anything less of him, because I think the people on stage, especially people like Nick Christie, is going to just go after him and insult him. So I'm going to be actually watching President Trump with Tucker Carlson at the same time. So
right, and so in that forum, he is addressing you. In other words, he's not just he's not doing Joe Biden's basement campaign. He's making himself present. He's answering questions.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Bill. I appreciate the call. So Bill's going to be checking in on that interview with Tucker and Trump this evening. Again, airing at the same time as the debate. Let me get Chris in Marshall in here, line 3. Chris, good afternoon.
I'm in a really bad cell coverage area. I'm sorry if I fade in or out.
You sound just fine, Chris. Go for it.
Thank you, sir. Byron Donald.
Oh, of course.
They were going to.
Oh my goodness! Sorry, Chris. Chris, I can see the point that you'd like to make, so I'll say it on your behalf. You're right. You do have a bad cell signal right now. Chris is trying to say that it's a little rich to hear people like Byron Donalds upset that surrogates are being barricaded from the spin room tonight in Milwaukee. That is the room wherein representatives of each campaign go and speak to the press right after the debate. He says that this could be resolved if Trump just went to the debate. There'd be no problem with access to the spin room. He points out. All right, more of your calls in a moment on the debates here and what you're looking for tonight, what you'd like to see. All ahead, 888-630-9625. Just hours away from this first presidential debate and simultaneously an interview with Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson this evening around 9 o'clock. Let's take JT calling in from D.C. on line 2. Hey, JT.
Jonathan, I just wanted to say what I expect to see tonight is I expect to see DeSantis to continue to connect with the crowd like his, his Twitter interview went, then I expect Chris Christie to connect like the bridge he built, and I expect Vivek Ramaswamy to crush it because he's truly connecting with the crowds every time he speaks. He handles himself quite well. So that's what I expect to see from the debate tonight.
I would not be surprised if Vivek Ramaswamy has a breakout performance this evening. I won't also be surprised if he's the subject of quite a bit of targeting this evening by some of the other candidates. The belief that he's risen a little too high and those other campaigns are going to want a piece of that action.
Yeah. And if I could say one more thing, if I was Donald Trump being interviewed by Tucker Carlson, not that I'm in any position to give him any kind of advice, but I would look the camera dead in the face and I would say the reason why I'm not on stage tonight is because my First Amendment and Fourth Amendment rights are being crushed by the Department of Justice, so I can't really talk about it right now. But that's what I would do. Yeah,
we're going to see a lot more of that develop now over the next 24 hours as he faces arrest in Georgia. Thank you very much, JT, for the call. Let me take Dennis calling in on line 4 now. Dennis, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yeah, Vince, Chris Christie is an absolute total fraud. And I just wish more people would know that. He, when he was U.S. Attorney, prior to being the governor of New Jersey,
right.
He probably had his sights set on it because he went to Morristown, New Jersey, and he spoke to a gathering of illegals telling them that they weren't illegal. It wasn't a crime. And, furthermore, he stopped giving police and fire retirees cost of living, for the whole 8 years he was the governor. I mean, he's not a well-liked guy. He's just a mean-spirited fraud, and that's what I have to say about it.
All right, Dennis, thank you. Yeah, Chris Christie on that stage. Not sure what he's running for, but I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to take down Donald Trump. Trump not appearing on that debate stage tonight. More on this in just a moment as we're joined by Sean Spicer, who knows a lot about the way these debates are set up and may have some thoughts on what to expect himself. Good afternoon to you. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, 4 o'clock, Phil Kerpen joins us, an expert on the government's COVID tyranny. It turns out some of it's coming back, apparently. Phil is watching it really closely. We'll discuss with him. Daniel Turner is here at 4:30. We talk about American energy and the questions on that subject that should appear on that debate stage tonight. And Dr. Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, is with us at 5 o'clock. As he says, no, Joe Biden, you shouldn't have another $24 billion in American funding to send to Ukraine without giving us a goal. What's the goal exactly? What's going to happen there? We'll get into all of it today. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Again, the debate taking place tonight, 9 p.m. in Milwaukee. You'll be able to hear it live right here on WMAL. But before we get there, what should we expect this evening? What does it take to even set up a debate? Let's ask a man who's been involved in that very question at the highest level. Sean Spicer is here. He's the host of the Sean Spicer Show, and he's got a long, storied career in politics. Hello, Sean.
Hey, Vince. Good to see you. Yeah, we're out here in Milwaukee doing the show, Sean Spicer Show, available at SeanSpicer.com. So it's been great for getting beneath really talking to people about what's happening, what the expectations are, all that kind of stuff. It's amazing kind of getting back into the grind for the first time since 2015.
Yeah, what do you make of this? I'll start with the obvious one, which is Donald Trump not appearing on that stage tonight. What do you make of having a debate without the front runner on stage?
Well, it's fine. I mean, we're going through the processes. I would argue that regardless of who it is, if you're up, 40, 50 points, standing on stage with people who need name tags is not the smartest move. I mean, if you're sitting there, if you're the champ in the boxing ring, you don't let the guy who just walked into the gym take you on. They earn their way up the fight. I think Donald Trump should debate as the process drags on and the field gets winnowed and there are more people, there are fewer people and the threshold gets higher. But listen, I mean, I'm trying to be pejorative here, but I mean, there are several people who basically had to do gimmicks and gift card giveaways to qualify for the stage. This is the former president of the United States, two-time nominee. I think he needs to see a little bit more of a competitive field before he takes the stage and sits there and gets hammered by 7 people for an exercise that's purely intended to go after him, not actually to help Republicans pick their nominee.
What do you think of his tactic to counter-program the debate tonight with that interview with Tucker? It's set to air at 8:55.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, look, this is the thing with Trump. He counter-programs. I actually said this on my show yesterday. I'll be interested to see. You know, I said views because ratings aren't really, you can't do that on Twitter. But I think that this is smart. And, you know, his goal is to suck the oxygen out of the room. He's going to do that again tomorrow, Thursday, when he goes down to Fulton County, Georgia. The bottom line is these guys need oxygen. They're at several of them. I mean, there's the only one outside of single digits is DeSantis. And so, you know, at some point you realize from a campaign perspective that there's no path forward. And these guys have to do something to either break out or they're not going to go further. I mean, no one's going to keep donating financially or their time. I mean, campaigns take money and people. And at some point, as much as you might love one of these other candidates, you're going to say, am I really going to get out of bed, dial for them to try to get support, put a sign in my yard, send emails for somebody that doesn't have a path forward to the nomination.
So what's really, I mean, so that's a key point, the donor reaction to all of this. If somebody were to say, quote, win this evening, and that would mean over the next few weeks they accrue support as a result of their debate performance, that would be key towards getting the kind of money flowing in that could sustain the campaign, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, as I said, campaigns take 2 things, money and people. They need money to pay for the bus, to pay for the headquarters, to put the ads up. I mean, even before the ads, you look at an exercise like a debate, you've got to bring all your surrogates here, your campaign team. Think about how many hotel rooms and buses. I'm staring out the window,
yes.
You know, Vivek Ramaswamy's buses on one side, DeSantis is at the other. Those things aren't free. They cost money. And so they need donors to believe that they have a path forward, or in Vivek's case or Doug Burgum's case, they have to have a big wallet. But, you know, this is the situation that these folks are in. They need that. And then they need supporters. They need people who are going to do the volunteer aspect of this. And at some point, no matter how much you love someone, as I said, if you don't think that they have any shot at winning,
yes,
you're not going to give them your hard-earned money or your time.
In your experience, does the primary process improve the candidates who are involved in it? In other words, do they get into this process and then become a little more aware because of the performance, say, of their opponents, of the types of issues that they should be focusing on, and do they become more adept at speaking to the voters and actually, you know, adopting the positions that they need to become president?
Well, I would think that the biggest thing is they know how to, you know, at some point you can't be the man, or, you know, we have a woman run. You can't be the person without taking a punch. And that, to me, is the biggest value in these things, is that you have to know you can't go into a general election thinking that you're going to win without having taken a couple punches and a couple go-rounds in the ring. And so more than anything, I think, you know, if you're adapting your positions to what you hear in the room, then I don't think you're the most authentic person in the world. But you need to be able to look like, I mean, how many punches did Donald Trump take in 2015 and he let him roll off? I think people said, I like that guy. He gets in there. He wasn't canned. I mean, he gets asked about all of these women at the first debate by Megyn Kelly, and he says, only Rosie O'Donnell. And everybody laughs because it wasn't a canned answer. It was authentic. I think that's the question tonight. How many of these guys actually look like they're running for president and not for like a cable contract?
Yeah, totally. You have to say, like, a guy like Ron DeSantis, as low as he's polling in right now, and again, he's number 2, he does have a great record as governor. I mean, it'll be interesting
Absolutely.
to see whether he has the time and the ability to project that tonight in such a way that he turns some heads.
Yeah, I would argue that I think I'm a fan of Ron DeSantis as governor. I think we need more governors like him. He stood up to, you know, the woke corporations. He stood up to the media. He stood strong in the face of COVID. He has created a great environment for people in Florida to want to live, raise a family, be a police officer. I think as a party, we need to, instead of necessarily going after some of these guys, embrace them. I mean, it might not be his year this year, but that doesn't mean that we have to, attack him. In fact, the opposite. I'd rather see more governors like Ron DeSantis who have led the way in Florida than to try to attack him. Again, you know, it's always good too. Look, I still think this is President Trump's to lose. just doing the math as far as what it takes to win the nomination and get the number of delegates. But, this is good that some of these guys are out there taking a swing at this. It gets them ready, I think, for probably 2028.
There was I saw a video the other day that I believe DeSantis supporters were sharing. But in other words, it was kind of an anti-Trump video, but it was a summary of Trump's positions in the past where he had brought in basically all these hires during the administration in which you served as well. People like Rex Tillerson, Jerome Powell, John Bolton, John Kelly, Jim Mattis. And the video starts with him saying all these nice things as he hires them and how great they're going to be for the country. And then eventually it shows the video of him saying how awful they were and how they were overrated and how they were terrible and they should have never been there. It'll be interesting to see if that comes up tonight. But I have to say, as somebody who has been very supportive of Trump, that is one of the areas I was concerned with, the personnel stuff, and I'm hoping he's learned some lessons from his first go in office.
Yeah, but look, the thing that's interesting about that angle, and I don't disagree with you. I mean, it's interesting because he always talks about the best and the brightest, and then he criticizes a lot of folks. Luckily, I don't count myself on that list of people he's gone after. But at the end of the day, it hasn't hurt him, and that's the thing that I think I would urge candidates to look at the video and go, hey, you've seen this movie. If voters don't care. It's like the indictments. Everyone's like, oh, he's going to go down. Now we're facing the fourth one. The old political rules don't apply to Trump in the way that they do to others. So I think I would urge you to be careful of conventional wisdom.
Yes. But the way I'm assessing that, Sean, is not from a political calculus. I agree with you completely. Trump defies political gravity. My point is just from an outcome perspective. I want him to be able to hire people that are on the same page, that aren't undermining him, that can do the right job for America.
Right. And here's what I would tell you. If you look at, I know where things started, right? And I was part of that, and it was disruptive. And we had, Gary Cohen as the National Economic Council advisor and Rex Tillerson at State. This was a guy who wasn't in politics before. He didn't have a cadre of consultants and advisors and previous staff the way most former governors and senators, et cetera, do, who we've hired. So it was a bit of a learning curve and a feeling out process. And for a lot of the things that, Trump was relying on some people who didn't give him the best people or advice early on. But if you look at the end of the administration, clearly a lot more stable. He's figured out who was with him, who was implementing the America First agenda, who could be relied on, and who were sort of the weaker people. So I would argue that I think he would go into another term with a lot under his belt in terms of saying, I know who I want for defense, I know who I want for state or health and human services, et cetera.
I hope the talent pool is big to help join him too, because the left and the institutions that they control is doing everything they can to destroy the people who are around Trump or who would dare associate themselves with them. I'm looking at a picture of Rudy Giuliani on TV right now. He's been booked in Georgia. You've got any number of Trump attorneys who are constantly being indicted in this justice system, whether it's at the state or the federal level. It's amazing, isn't it, how aggressive this system is towards stopping democracy from taking place?
Yeah. Well, look, I think the one thing that part of the reason I did my own show, and part of the reason that, Daily Caller and other places are so crucial right now, is you have a corporate media that is hell-bent on keeping information from us, just deciding what we should believe and not see, and then hide. So I think part of this is that we've got to be able to break through and communicate more effectively going forward, because that we are up against a lot as we head forward.
Unquestionably. Okay, so Sean, how are you going to be spending your time in Milwaukee?
Well, I honestly, Vince, it's funny. I mean, I'm actually enjoying. I ran all the debates in 2015. It's nice to be able to actually go and observe now. But I've been in and out of the Fiserv Arena this morning. I've been doing a series of interviews. We just taped the Sean Spicer Show. It'll drop at 6 o'clock tonight on my YouTube channel, Sean M. Spicer. It's on Apple Podcast if you just have the audio version, or you're cruising home from D.C. tonight. I know people work in D.C. 3 days a week. Like, I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It's become a 3-day week here in D.C. So if you're commuting home on the Beltway or 395 or 66, just go to Apple, iTunes, subscribe to the Sean Spicer Show, and you'll have just enough time to listen to all the episodes before you make it home if the commute is about right. And so I'm just doing that. I just was over in the room. I know Doug Burgum had an incident. I just saw him over there making the rounds. He's trying to get around in a boot. So I mean, for those who don't know, Doug Burgum was playing pickup basketball last night. Apparently, this is the story his campaign is telling, and he tore his Achilles
And I guess he did a walkthrough earlier today to make a decision on whether or not he'll be able to do the debate. What's the update on that? Do you know, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I literally saw him within 10 minutes ago. He's on crutches and in a boot. I posted it to Instagram and Twitter if anyone wants to see what I'm talking about. But I think what he's trying to do is get a sense of how long can he stay on that foot. I'll tell you, it's funny. I was talking to his team when we were in the spin room with him. He is a hardcore dude. This guy, when he's had surgery in the past, has refused any kind of medication. He literally had surgery and didn't get like any of the pain meds. So he is on no meds. He said that's just not his thing. And I'm thinking to myself, the first thing I ask when I scrape my knee is, I need something. I have a scraped knee.
But
and this guy, he is.
This is a political debate, though. We're not waiting to. He's not on the starting line of the Bengals. Like all we need to do is have him on stage. Can they put a stool out there for him, or is that against some sort of rule?
Who knows? I don't know, but I'm saying he's got crutches and a boot. Like I said, you want to see what he looks like. It's not like but I think part of this is that is the pain threshold, because it's clearly. I mean, I've ripped my Achilles. I've had surgery on it. I think that there's probably how long can I stand on this thing for?
Sure. I guess we'll find out the answer. He was not going to have that much time to speak anyway, if history is any guide.
I was going to say, maybe they just wheel him out and say, look, you're going to get 90 seconds. Take it right now, and then we'll start in a minute.
Yeah, that's right. Give him whatever you give Biden to get him going. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. As always, Sean Spicer, host of the Sean Spicer Show, live from Milwaukee, where the debate is taking place tonight. The Burgum story is insane. So I have some theories on this. Let's not accept it at face value. Why would we do that anymore? I don't believe anything I hear these days. So Burgum has an Achilles tear, they tell us. Is this a way to get out of the debate? Is this? Shoot. An Achilles tear. Who knew? Don't have to do the debate anymore. I don't think so. I mean, he's worked really hard. He's pulled all the right strings. He's able to manipulate all the data to get onto that stage. Maybe he was looking for a good storyline for tonight. Maybe nobody else was talking about Doug Burgum other than the people who were engaged in Bergmentum. That's just a great word. But maybe he just needed a storyline. Some sympathy questions from the moderators tonight. Let's go to Doug Burgum, who just injured his Achilles. Doug, as a recent survivor of an Achilles injury, how you feeling tonight? How you holding up? Could this be a Jussie Smollett-like incident? And if it was, why wasn't it better planned? Why wouldn't you have a more theatrical injury? Like, all these people were scared that Doug Burgum was about to become president of the United States. They set upon him in the middle of a city street as he walked out of a subway. They attacked him. They said, "This ain't Burgum country." Who knows? Anyway, Achilles tear for Doug Burgum. We'll see what happens this evening on that debate stage. 3:50. I see our colleague here on WMAL, Ben Shapiro, pointing something out I've been thinking about too. Fox has imposed restrictions on media on sharing the clips of the debate, I guess, tomorrow in the wake of all of this. You can only share up to 3 minutes of the audio, which means the entirety of the Tucker Trump interview will be available to share for everybody. I don't know if Fox thought this through. I'm not even really sure they can do that legally. I think fair use is a little more generous than 3 minutes. It reminds me of the NFL disclaimer that they air. You know the NFL disclaimer, right? That they air during the games. They say that you're not allowed to talk about the football game without the permission of the NFL.
Telecast is copyrighted by the NFL for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this telecast or of any pictures, descriptions, or accounts of the game without the NFL's consent is prohibited.
Descriptions or accounts? Oh, hey, Josh Allen threw a touch. You're under arrest. You're not allowed to talk about that. The NFL. These absurd legal disclaimers. All right, so Fox says you're going to air 3 minutes. We will air single syllables tomorrow. Actually, you'll be able to hear the entire debate this evening via our legally signed off upon arrangement as we air it here on WMAL at 9 o'clock. And then, of course, I will be playing clips of Trump, Tucker tomorrow right here on this program as well. So you get everything. If you're a WMAL listener, you get the best of both worlds. Isn't that the greatest? Of course it is. That's why it's great working here. All right, coming up, Phil Kerpen is going to be with us. He's the president of American Commitment. And he's keeping an eye on what the government is up to with the return of COVID. Yeah, COVID's back, baby, just in time for the 2024 election. What do those things have to do with one another? Phil Kerpen will explain. That's ahead.